Discover the incredible transformation. How I revealed an unexpected love at my son's wedding. Sarah paced the back hall of the community center, her breath shallow and her heart a chaotic drum in her chest. The smell of fresh flowers clashed with the wafting aroma of chocolate-tiered cakes, but amidst the buzz of wedding preparations, dread nestled itself like a shadow in her gut. Jake, her son, was getting married, and while every fiber of her being cherished his happiness, deep within lurked a different kind of turmoil, one tangled with long-buried memories and unfulfilled desires. Could she really manage the bittersweet mix of pride and envy coursing through her veins? As the town buzzed around her, neighbors offered to lend a hand, friends supplied a steady stream of encouragement, all of which amplified the pride she felt for Jake. Yet, Sarah's habitual nurturing the backbone of her family now felt like a double-edged sword. A sudden knocking at the door broke her reverie. It was Mark, her high school sweetheart, the man who had slipped from her life years ago, leaving behind echoes of what could have been. The invitation to his surprise appearance sent her heart racing. A tide of emotions threatened to sweep her away: excitement, anxiety, confusion, with every thought spiraling deeper into the crevices of her memory. "Am I ready for this?" she muttered under her breath, glancing at the bouquet of flowers in her hands. Would reconnecting with Mark mean dismantling the carefully constructed life for Jake? The fear gripped her. I had poured everything into his future, made sacrifices, and in those quiet moments leading up to this wedding, she couldn't shake the thought of what burdens a potential reunion with Mark might carry. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jake deserved this day, she reminded herself. Yet a surge of regret echoed through her, the realization that her dreams, her longing for connection, had been shadowed by her duty as a mother. News spread like wildfire. Mark had battled undiagnosed struggles in his career. The poetry of his brilliance had been underappreciated, and Sarah felt the weight of that reality squeeze her heart. Why hadn't she reached out? With each passing moment, the wedding day approached with an unbearable mix of joy and dread hanging heavily on her. As laughter and music swirled outside, Sarah sensed hidden conversations unfolding between her emotions, the thrill of love, rekindled against the fierce pull of loyalty to her family. What if she stepped beyond the lines she'd drawn over a decade, just for a glance at a past that still felt vibrant and alive? As the evening soiree neared its climax, guests swirled around her, laughter echoing, but all Sarah could hear was a heartbeat pounding in her ears. She scanned the room, searching for Mark, her own heart a raucous symphony of longing and fear. The weight of external expectations pressed down on her shoulders, coiling tighter as she caught a glimpse of Jake and his fiancée nestled close, a reflection of love that both burned and shattered her heart. And then there he was. In the periphery, their eyes met. For those fleeting moments, the outside world slipped away. Only they remained, suspended in that space charged with years of unspoken words. Behind the veil of celebration, a decision loomed, one that could redefine everything. Would she choose the safe path or risk it all for a chance at something beautiful, yet fearfully uncharted? The air grew thicker, anticipation crashing in waves as Sarah stood on a precipice, heart-heavy, dreams fluttering, a delicate balance teetering toward precious uncertainty. The silence between Sarah and Mark hung like a taut thread, vibrating with tension and unresolved emotions. This moment, once imagined during her most hopeful days, was now a double-edged sword. Did she dare reach out and embrace the past, or would she be pulled back into the gravity of her responsibilities, the reality of being a mother first? As guests twirled around the dance floor, laughter intertwined with music, and the air felt electric, Sarah's instinct was to retreat. Yet, Jake's joyous face, radiant and full of promise, anchored her in this pivotal moment. She blinked, summoned her courage, and felt an inexplicable pull toward Mark. This fleeting connection, however charged with nostalgia, was an invitation to explore who she had grown into over the years. "Sarah," he called gently, cutting through the chaos as he stepped closer. The mere sound of her name on his lips sent a jolt of recognition through her. This was the boy who understood her, who saw beyond her motherly duties and reflected a version of herself she had tucked away. Yet, nostalgia quickly tangled with urgency. "We need to talk," he added, his eyes deepening with concern. "I can't right now," she replied, feeling the tug-of-war scenario play out in her mind. What could they discuss? The lost years, the what-ifs, or the unfamiliar choices that lay ahead? This day belonged to Jake, and she was his mother first, above all else. But her heart whispered doubts about dismissing this moment as just a fleeting reunion. Mark's expression transformed from longing to determination. "Then let us step outside for a moment, please. I don't want to disrupt anything, but I can't walk away without talking to you." In that instant, Sarah felt her resolve tremble. She nodded, aware of the murmurs of anticipation that might follow her exit, but increasingly restless at the thought of denying her own complex feelings outside. The evening air wrapped around them like a cool embrace, contrasting sharply with the internal flames igniting within her. She glanced at Mark, now silhouetted against the soft backdrop of garden lights. The man she once loved still carried the aura of creativity and sensitivity, but now there was a certain ache in his eyes, a depth that reflected scars carved by experience. "Yeah, it's a bit odd, isn't it? Seeing each other after all this time," Mark began, his voice steady yet vulnerable. "Odd, yes, but also electrifying." The questions, the possibilities swirled chaotically in her mind. She could feel her heartbeat quicken. Perhaps their paths had crossed for a reason. Why didn't you reach out all those years? The words slipped from her lips before she could filter them. It was a confrontation cloaked in curiosity, but she immediately recognized the deeper shadow of hurt woven within. Instead of flinching, Mark took a breath. "I thought it was better to let you go. I didn't want to be the reason you stayed in a life that didn't reflect who you truly are." A rush of emotions surged, both anger and acknowledgement, woven together. He had let her go, but in doing so, had he underestimated her capabilities to pursue her own happiness? For the first time, Sarah grappled with a revelation. Her identity didn't have to be a footnote in the life of mother and son. She wasn't just a caretaker. Beneath the layers of family obligations lay a woman who yearned to reclaim her voice, her passions, her unfulfilled dreams. Could this connection with Mark ignite something dormant within her? Maybe, she hesitated, maybe I've wanted to explore that, reclaim who I am. But I've never allowed myself. The acknowledgement hung between them, charged with weight, her desire to break free clashing against the security she had built. Every emotion felt like a negotiation. As Mark stepped closer, vulnerability replaced his steadfastness. "Let us figure this out together, then. What do you want?" What did she want? In that moment, she faced the vastness of uncertainty, igniting a flicker of determination. The choice before her now felt immense, and the heartbeat of possibility urged her onward. Would she allow herself the freedom to imagine a life that didn't revolve solely around Jake's happiness, one that featured her burgeoning desires instead? That internal battle raged on, but for the first time in years, Sarah was ready to balance the scales. As they stood on the cusp of a new chapter, the silence around them grew heavy with potential and uncharted territory. She instinctively felt that every choice moving forward would reverberate well beyond this evening, beckoning her to confront not just her past but her future. "Jake's wedding is just the beginning for us all, isn't it?" she murmured. Mark's nod was slow, deliberate. The question of what came next hung palpably in the air, leaving her wondering if she had the strength to embrace the journey ahead. Would she step into the unknown, or retreat into the familiar shadows of doubt? In the clarity of this moment, a decision loomed, one that could change everything. The air between them felt thick with unspoken possibilities, each second stretching like the silence before a storm. Sarah could hardly breathe as the moment crystallized, a defining juncture poised precariously on the brink of choice. "Let us be honest, Sarah," Mark said, breaking through her fog of uncertainty. "We both know that the past has its clingy grip, but it doesn't mean we can't explore what it means for our future." His eyes held a mixture of hope and challenge, the kind she used to find so intoxicating. The intensity of his gaze ignited something deep within her, something that longed for expression but had remained hidden under layers of motherhood and expectations. She took a breath, steadying herself. The reality of what he was suggesting felt both daunting and thrilling. "What do I want?" she repeated, letting the question hang in the air as if summoning the courage to answer it out loud. It was not just about rediscovering herself but stepping into a wider world, one that included passions, joys, and even failures. The list she had mentally prepared was daunting, a jumble of aspirations that had faded into the background over the years. Writing, painting, traveling. Could she reshape her narrative? Have you thought about what life could look like without the constraints you've placed on yourself? Mark's voice was gently prodding, a seeker of truth rather than confrontation. Every day, Mark. Every single day, she admitted. In the quiet of the garden, beneath the glow of stars and dimmed lights, it felt like a confession. But I'm terrified. Terrified that I'm just imagining something that isn't attainable. Terrified of prioritizing my own happiness over Jake's needs. Mark's expression softened, the shadows in his eyes shifting toward empathy. You're not abandoning Jake by exploring what makes you happy. You'd be showing him what it means to live authentically. Isn't that the kind of example you want to set for him? His words hit her like a bolt. The realization rolled through her. Jake would benefit from seeing her pursue her joys, her ambitions. Wouldn't that truly enrich the foundation of their lives? The image of her son steady and certain in his own aspirations fueled a bittersweet pride and an underlying dread. What if she failed to create the life she now envisioned? Sarah faced Mark with growing resolve. So what do I do? How do I go about this? Start small, he suggested. What if you just take one step? You have so much to offer, so much inside you waiting to be released. If not now, then when? The challenge resonated, reverberating against the walls she had erected around herself. She could feel her heart racing in response, excitement battling apprehension. But what if I take that step and fall flat? What if the wheels I try to set in motion careen into a wall? Falling is part of it. But you won't know unless you try, he said, the steadiness in his voice like an anchor against her turmoil. Taking a deep breath, Sarah considered the weight of her decisions and what her action could mean not just for her, but for the familial landscape that now felt profoundly different. It was as if each thought opened a door into a corridor she had never dared to traverse. Could she begin to nurture the passion she had cast aside for so many years? A flicker of ambition ignited inside her. Could she really embrace all of this? Just as her heart was about to settle into a comforting rhythm of acceptance, a new wave of doubt washed over her. Who would I even be if I stripped away these layers? She questioned, her voice lowering as the implications took shape in her mind. Someone remarkable, Mark replied confidently, and for the first time she believed the promise of those words. As they stood there, Sarah felt the ground beneath her shift, the fog beginning to lift. This wasn't just a reunion. It was a moment of transformation. She realized that asserting her own desires need not conflict with her role as a mother. It could harmonize beautifully with it. Maybe it's time to tap into that old passion for writing. It's been buried for so long. Her voice trailed off as she contemplated the images it stirred. Ink-stained fingers, late nights of creation, stories waiting to be told. Mark's gaze locked onto hers, the fervor illuminating his face. That essay start. But remember, Sarah, the journey often begins with a leap, not just a step. Caught in the thrill of this newfound vision, Sarah felt an exhilarating pulse of freedom. But as her heart soared, an echo of doubt whispered, reminding her of the ever-present responsibilities that wrapped around her life. Will she dare to let her newfound aspirations take flight, or will her past anchor her down? In the tantalizing silence that followed, both knew that the stakes were rising. What lay ahead was an uncertainty deceptive in its ambiguity, but bursting with potential. What if I set my heart on this path, and it leads me somewhere I can't return from? She searched Mark's face for reassurance. His smile held a courage that spurred her on. That's the beauty of it, Sarah. You'll find your way. And with that, the future whispered promises laced with dreams, urging her toward decisions that could alter everything she thought she knew. The moment of truth was drawing near, and Sarah's heart raced at the thought. Would she leap into this unknown world, setting aside the doubts for the time being? The next morning broke with a clarity that felt foreign. Sunlight streamed through her bedroom window, illuminating the corners of her life that had long remained staggeringly unexamined. Sarah sat up, a sense of determination coursing through her veins. Today was not merely another day. It was a fresh opportunity to step into the person she felt stifled beneath years of accumulated expectations. After a hurried breakfast with Jake, his laughter echoing joyfully against the wall, she retired to her small home office, a cluttered sanctuary that had served her as a family storage room. It was time to reclaim it for her own dreams. She positioned herself at the desk, staring at the blank notebook she had tucked away long ago. The pages were pristine, untouched, a blank canvas waiting for the ink of her thoughts. What do I even write about? The question hovered, a whisper of doubt. Yet as her fingers hovered above the paper, memories surged. Childhood stories spun from imagination, scribbled poems during sleepless nights filled with dreaming, a vivid world of characters begging to be brought back to life. She felt the remnants of that old passion flicker inside. Like a spark searching for oxygen, with a deep breath, Sarah wrote the first sentence. It was shaky, hesitant, but it was honest, a reflection of her newfound yearning. Each word flowed slowly, gaining momentum, shaping into a narrative. There was something liberating about confronting the blank page. She let words tumble from her mind with a rawness she hadn't felt in years, rediscovering the thrill of creation that sparked a fire deep within her. Yet as the hours passed, the shadow of doubt resurfaced, weighing heavier than before. What if this is just a phase? What if I'm not even good at this anymore? The internal dialogue tormented her, infusing her newfound ambition with uncertainty. Just as she was rolling out a vivid scene, the voice of her past echoed against her walls, threatening to drown out the vision she had so gingerly begun to craft. Focus on Jake, Sarah. You're a mother first. This is selfish. That nagging voice was relentless, pulling her back toward familiar fears. Underneath it all, she wrestled with a harsh truth. Her desires felt indulgent, particularly against the backdrop of a life that had always centered around her son's needs. And that moment of comprehension, Sarah understood the crux of her challenge. It wasn't just about writing or making a change. It was about redefining the concept of self-worth and allowing herself space to grow alongside her responsibilities. She recalled Mark's words from the previous night, a steady reminder that her passions weren't in direct conflict with her role as a mother. The ink flowed freely again as she began jotting down her fears. What if I fail? What if I disappoint my son? What if... But she paused and considered an alternative viewpoint. What if I thrive? What if I inspire Jake to pursue his own dreams? The shift felt monumental, a quiet but firm revolution brewing within her. Wiping her forehead as if clearing away residue from the past, she edged toward a hefty decision. It was time to share her words beyond these pages, to seek feedback, to invite vulnerability. It might be challenging. It might even upset the balance of my life, she whispered to herself, deliberating over the implications. The idea of exposing her inner thoughts to others ignited a mix of excitement and terror, intertwining possibilities of both rejection and acceptance. She grabbed her phone, her heart pounding. In a moment of impulsivity, she typed a message to a local writing group she had long contemplated joining. Hi there. I'm interested in joining your group. I've recently begun rediscovering my passion for writing. It felt both thrilling and terrifying to press send, a leap into an unknown terrain carved by ambition instead of fear. She set the phone aside. The weight of her decision settled in. She realized that the commitment she made to herself was as significant as any promise made to Jake. She craved growth not just for her, but as a mirror to his aspirations. Outside, the birds chirped gaily, a soundscape of encouragement. Sarah stood up and stretched, absorbing the warmth within her newfound clarity. She had embarked on this path, one that could redefine the essence of who she was and how she wishes to influence her son's life. But a lingering question loomed ominously over her excitement. Amidst anxiety and hope, had she stepped into a realm where dreams could fulfill or shatter expectations? Just as those thoughts threatened to overwhelm her, the rhythmic buzzing of her phone snapped her back to reality. A response awaited from the writing group. With bated breath, Sarah opened the message. What would it say? Would it echo her aspirations, or would it ring harshly of limitations? A moment of truth awaited as she braced for whatever was on the other side. The message flickered on her screen, the 3 dots signaling someone typing, only heightening her anticipation. Sarah's heart raced as the response finally appeared. Hi Sarah. We'd love to have you join our group. We meet every Thursday evening at the cafe downtown. Looking forward to seeing you next week. Relief washed over her, a warm wave dispelling the doubts that had clung tightly to her mind. They want me. They actually want me, she whispered, incredulity coloring her tone. This simple affirmation acted as a lit match to her burgeoning confidence, illuminating pathways she hadn't dared to explore until now. It wasn't just about joining a group. It was about stepping into a community that could foster her growth. As she set the phone down, an exhilarating thought flashed through her mind. What if this writing group could be my sanctuary? The café wasn't just a location. It was a metaphor for the gathering of ideas, experiences, and aspirations that she so desperately craved. She imagined sharing her stories, weaving her words amidst kindred spirits who would understand the intricacies of her journey. But with this exhilaration came a subtle undertow of fear. What would it be like to put her unpolished work before strangers? Would they see the weak spots in her narrative, the raw honesty that came with facing her past? Taking a deep breath, she scrolled through her notebook after dusting off the memories of yesterday's fierce dedication to writing. A renewed commitment emerged. She would not shy away from honing her craft. It was not only a promise to the group but to herself. That evening, Sarah tucked Jake into bed, the warmth of their shared laughter still lingering in the room. As she kissed him goodnight, an unexpected clarity bloomed inside her. Raising him might often feel like a juggling act, but it didn't mean she couldn't cultivate her passions. In fact, those passions might serve as the very framework upon which they could explore life together. With newfound resolve, she glanced around their modest living space. Each corner echoed the narrative of their lives. She had to acknowledge that although Jake came first, investing in her dreams didn't render her a selfish mother. Indeed, it could inspire him to chase his own ambitions without fear. The impending meeting loomed large in her mind. Over the next few days, Sarah found herself daydreaming about her writing, fantasizing about the conversations she would have. The thought of interaction with fellow writers energized her, promising a thrill she hadn't experienced since her college days. Yet, beneath that enthusiasm resided a deep-seated worry, the kind she thought she'd addressed. What if she discovered aspirations too lofty, even unattainable? Resuming the writing of her own stories would expose her to the harsh realities of creative critique. Driven by this apprehension, she planned her week meticulously, drafting stories, revising them, and even venturing beyond the comfortable world she had erected with her solo endeavors. She was embracing a process that demanded intentionality and fervor. Thursday arrived sooner than expected, and Sarah chose her outfit carefully, wanting to reflect both her newfound confidence and nervousness. As she stood in front of the mirror, her reflection seemed unfamiliar yet encouraging. With each passing minute leading up to the meeting, trepidation danced alongside her excitement, propelling her forward. The cafe buzzed with life, a maelstrom of conversations and clinking mugs, each one a reminder of the connection she craved. Upon entering the space, she felt a jolt of energy, equal parts fear and determination. Eyeing the group mingling at a table in the corner, she wrestled with self-doubt, but there was no turning back now. Approaching them with hesitant steps, she summoned all the courage she could muster and introduced herself. The warm greetings and welcoming smiles enveloped her, yet her heart still pounded as she prepared to share her work. The moment felt suspended, a precipice between illusion and reality. Would her words resonate, or would they reveal the vulnerable cracks she feared? Staring into the collection of strangers that felt both alien and familiar, she knew that this was a pivotal moment in her journey, not just in writing, but in embracing the woman she wanted to become. But just as she opened her notebook to share a piece of her heart, an unexpected voice broke through the noise, announcing an upcoming writing challenge that could alter everything. The words hung in the air, thick with potential, stirring an unquenchable curiosity about how far her newly kindled passion could reach. Would she rise to the occasion, or could this endeavor put her ambitions to the ultimate test? The announcement echoed in her mind like a call to arms, drawing her focus from her own insecurities to the imminent challenge ahead. The group leader's voice resonated with enthusiasm, detailing the specifics of the challenge. A themed contest with a tight deadline, an invitation for each writer to stretch their limits and explore uncharted territory. Is this what it feels like to be on the edge of something extraordinary? She thought, her heart beating a rapid rhythm of both fear and excitement. As others around her exchanged knowing glances and eager nods, Sarah's internal conflict flared. This was the moment to open up, to embrace potential, and yet doubt lingered in the corners of her mind like a persistent shadow. Suddenly, the thought of the competition ignited a reckoning within her. This was not merely a chance to win recognition but a catalyst for growth, pushing her deeply ingrained fears to the forefront. What if I fail? Was a nagging fear she recognized but had to confront. More importantly, she questioned what failure truly meant. Facing public scrutiny held a certain risk, but it also dangled the tantalizing prospect of personal evolution. Intent on steering the conversation back to her own aspirations amid the group's chatter, she raised her hand, claiming the floor. "I'd like to participate," she declared. Her voice steady despite the tremor of uncertainty coursing through her. As she looked around, encouragement radiated from her peers, reinforcing her decision. With that singular choice, a ripple of resolve strengthened her resolve. This was the first step of many she needed to take towards a more fulfilled self. The scent of coffee mixed with fresh pastries enveloped her, a comforting distraction as she plotted her writing strategy for the challenge. That night, she returned home with a sense of purpose that electrified her every move. While Jake slept soundly in the next room, she dedicated the evening to writing. The rhythm of her fingers against the keyboard became a therapeutic symphony, punctuating her commitment to herself, and the tales only she could tell as each paragraph blossomed. She felt the weight of her earlier fears gradually lift. Words flowed, inspired by the real emotions that had shaped her past, and with each sentence, she peered into the depths of her own narrative. It became clearer that her personal stories were not burdens to bear but powerful experiences that harbored lessons worth sharing. Days passed, and every moment at the cafe with her writing group gradually transformed into a cornerstone of her routine. The dialogue became an invitation to reimagine her voice, offering perspectives that challenged her understanding of good writing. Their constructive critiques only fueled her creative fire. But just as Sarah began to feel competent, a newness settling over her like a light summer rain, her competitive nature awakened. She wouldn't just settle for participation. Now the desire to write something truly impactful began to bloom. She questioned whether she could craft a piece that resonated, something that would convey the nuances of her experiences in a way that connected with others. As the contest deadline loomed, the pressure built. In the quiet of another determined night of writing, the glow of her laptop illuminated her intense focus. Words danced off the page, yet she grappled with self-imposed perfectionism. What if it's not enough? Nagged at her consciousness, stirring an incessant anxiety. But what if it was great, an unexpected revelation disguised in a layer of self-doubt? Fighting against this internal battle, she leaned into her final hours of writing. Would this entire process expose her vulnerabilities? Or could it ultimately unveil a hidden strength? Capturing her transformation through every piece of feedback and drip of ink on paper felt exhilarating but daunting. Finally, the day of submission arrived. As she clicked send, a sudden wave of realization crashed over her. She wasn't just submitting a story, she was unveiling her authentic self to the world. It was in that moment that she discovered not only her writing potential, but also the courage to embrace her ambitions fully. The truth of her ongoing development lay not in the outcome, but in the journey itself. As adrenaline ebbed, Sarah felt an exhilarating shift within. This journey was no longer just about writing. It was about confronting her fears, embracing her identity, and seizing opportunities that came her way. Yet, just as the excitement of her submission settled into a quiet relief, an email notification pinged, sparking a rush of anxiety. She would need to respond swiftly, facing an unexpected request that could alter the very path she had begun to pave for herself. What awaited her could either reinforce her newly troubled ambitions or shatter the confidence she had built so painstakingly. Sarah sat at her kitchen table, the vibrant sunlight filtering in through the window, illuminating the scattered notes and crumpled drafts around her. The email waiting for her response loomed heavy in her mind, an unwelcome interruption to the clarity she had just begun to embrace. As she reopened the message inviting her to speak at a local writers' event about her recent experience with the contest, she felt the tentacles of anxiety tighten around her throat. Speaking in public had never been her strength. The very thought of it conjured memories of stammering through presentations in school, feeling the weight of eyes boring into her, waiting for her to falter. A resurgence of self-doubt threatened to drown her enthusiasm. What if I can't articulate my journey? What if I fail to inspire, and instead I only reinforce my own insecurities? The internal dialogue escalated, pulling her down a spiral of anxious musings. Nevertheless, An opposing voice began to emerge, the one she had recently nurtured through writing. Embrace this opportunity, Sarah. You've faced greater challenges through your writing. This is your chance to own your story. Breathing deeply, she envisioned standing before an audience, not as the timid girl who shied away from attention but rather as a woman transformed, filled with newfound purpose. Faced with the decision, she realized that this moment wasn't merely about public speaking. It was an opportunity for her to reaffirm her commitment to her personal growth. The fear won't disappear, but I can't let it dictate my choices, she finally whispered to herself, hitting reply with trembling fingers. A simple confirmation of acceptance felt like a declaration of war against the fears that had long held her captive. Mr. Carson, the event coordinator, responded enthusiastically, expressing his delight in having her share her story. The validation sparked a flicker of excitement within her. Yet, the thrill was intermingled with a rising wave of fear she needed to confront head-on. Each day leading up to the event, she carved out time to prepare her speech, not just rehearsing words but reflecting on her journey from uncertainty to courage. With every practice run, she found herself uncovering new layers of her narrative. The transformation, the vulnerability, and the growth all threaded together to form a distinctive tapestry of experience. I'm not just a writer anymore. I'm a voice worth hearing, she began to internalize. The constructive feedback from her writing group unfolded like an artistic awakening, guiding her toward deeper insights not only about her writing craft but also about herself. The night before her speaking engagement, Sarah stood in front of the mirror, practicing her delivery. With each iteration, her confidence grew. Yet the unease remained an undercurrent that reminded her of the journey she had undertaken. I am not afraid to express who I am, she stated firmly, as if reaffirming her identity each time. The emotions that had once felt overwhelming began to coalesce into a palpable sense of anticipation as she settled into her seat at the venue. Surrounded by fellow writers and creative souls, her heart raced in rhythm with the gathering crowd. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement, reflective of a community cheering each other on. When her name was called, the familiar surge of adrenaline kicked in. Step by step, she made her way to the microphone, taking in the faces before her, some familiar, some unknown, all willing to listen. In that moment, something shifted within her. The initial nerves began to fade and were replaced by a fierce determination to share her story genuinely. I am here to speak about the unexpected love I discovered in my journey through words. And everything I believed would hold me back became the very things that propelled me forward, she began. And just like that, every ounce of her past struggles converged into a poised articulation of perseverance and growth as she spoke. The response she received was nothing short of uplifting. Each nod, every spark of recognition from the audience reinforced her belief in her own transformative journey. However, even as the moment soared, a haunting question lingered at the back of her mind. Was she prepared for whatever lay beyond the approval of a supportive audience? The moment she finished, applause erupted, yet a sense of urgency thrummed beneath her excitement, igniting new uncertainties. Had she truly conquered her fears, or were they merely lying in wait, ready to confront her once more? As she exited the stage, a new email notification pinged on her phone, containing an unexpected invitation from a renowned literary figure. Before she could even fathom its implications, curiosity and dread battled within her. Her journey of self-discovery was far from over, and now she would have to decide if she was willing to step even further into the light. The invitation hung heavily in Sarah's mind as she stood in her dimly lit living room, the remnants of her recent triumph still echoing in her thoughts. An email request from Jesse Langford, a highly regarded literary figure, was not something to take lightly. It was an opportunity, a rather extraordinary one. Yet it felt terrifyingly overexposed. Could she really take this plunge into new depths of vulnerability? The weight of the decision pressed against her chest like a boulder. After sitting on her couch, she stared into the deep recesses of her now familiar notebooks, their pages filled with her musings and fragments of poetry. It occurred to her that these intimate thoughts had become something more than mere words on paper. They were invitations to reflect not just on her writing but on who she was becoming. Still, standing on that precipice of uncertainty left her heart racing. What would it mean to share her thoughts with a more expansive audience? What if she said yes? The prospect of being considered worthy enough to sit with prominent writers filled her with a mix of pride and panic. What if I can't keep up? What if I'm merely a pretender? she asked herself, her voice barely above a whisper. Those old echoes of insecurity crept in again, a reminder of school years when she felt invisible among her peers. Yet somewhere beneath that layer of apprehension, the voice of encouragement she had recently cultivated nudged her again. This is how you grow. Nervousness doesn't equate to inadequacy, but rather to the opportunity for expansion. Unfurling from her previous doubts, she grabbed her phone and reread the email, her finger hovering over the reply button. After a meticulous moment of confrontation, she accepted the invitation. The realization swept over her. She was standing at a turning point, poised for transformation. Days morphed into restless nights filled with thoughts of what to bring, artwork for discussions, pieces that reflected her evolution as a writer and as a person. Her imagination ran wild, framing the context of who she had become in the process of sharing her earlier works. More than anything, she wanted to infuse her experience with genuine passion, to make what had once felt impossible now feel like a reclaiming of herself. Yet, as she immersed herself in preparations, an unsettling discomfort arose. Did she require the validation of an audience to affirm her worth as a writer? Would she lose herself in the rush of acceptance, veering off her authentic path? In the midst of her fervor, questions darted around her mind, sharp and insistent. Do I want to be viewed as successful? Or do I want to remain true to my voice? The day came quickly, and anxiety draped itself like a heavy cloak as Sarah arrived at the literary gathering. It felt less like a celebration and more like a confrontation with the person she had been. The venue pulsed with excitement, laughter spilling over from groups of writers and critics exchanging thoughts on the latest narrative trends. For a moment, she felt like an outsider peering into a world far removed from her own. She found a quiet corner. Sarah pondered the choices before her. Was the quest for recognition worth the risk of losing herself? Breathing deeply, she sought solace in her own words. You must be your truest self, for therein lies the power of your voice. She visualized her audience as a circle of aspiring creatives, all grappling with their own fears and ambitions. This was a moment she could embrace, not merely for her own growth, but to foster a deeper connection with fellow writers. Just before she took her seat on the panel, she caught a glimpse of Jessie Langford surveying the room. Dressed in elegant understatement, with an attentive gaze, Jessie instantly embodied the towering figure Sarah had admired from a distance. The rattle of excitement and trepidation coursed through her. This wasn't just an engagement, this was a journey toward self-definition. The microphone beckoned her, leaving behind the shadows of self-doubt in exchange for a chance to enrich her narrative. In that moment, she understood that it wasn't only about receiving accolades but rather embracing her past, connecting with everyone, and moving forward with her identity intact. But as she glanced at the expectant faces before her, an unsettling truth began to dawn on her. The weight of authenticity demanded not only courage but also a vulnerability she had yet to fully embrace, a vulnerability that could either elevate her or render her exposed yet again. What would she uncover about herself hidden beneath the layers of aspiration and fear? As Sarah stepped up to the microphone, a hush enveloped the room, amplifying her racing heartbeat. The expectant faces before her were a tapestry of warmth and scrutiny, urging her onward yet threatening to ensnare her in the fraying threads of her insecurities. She felt the familiar sting of self-doubt creeping back in, but she inhaled deeply, threading her breaths together like a lifeline, binding her past to the present. Suddenly, in that sharp moment of silence, something shifted within her. This wasn't merely a formal presentation. It was an invitation to engage, a call to be seen not just as a writer but as Sarah, a human woven with dreams and fears. She leaned into that realization, allowing it to wash over her, empowering her to confront the feelings lurking beneath her composed facade. I've always believed that writing is a dialogue, she began, her voice steady despite the underlying tremor. A conversation with oneself and inevitably with others. She watched as heads nodded in unison, and an electric thrill shot through her. This was not just about reciting words. She began to share the vulnerability that had kept her up at nights. Through her stories, she revealed the threads of her journey, the times she felt silenced by others, the long hours spent nursing the weight of her dreams alone, and the dawning moments of connection that followed. Each anecdote revealed something more profound than she had anticipated. A growing awareness of her resiliency. She felt the audience's collective breath like a rising tide, and the weight of judgment began to lift, morphing instead into understanding as she recounted her struggle with self-identity and the precarious balance between artistic expression and societal expectation. She discovered solace in shared experiences. People weren't just spectators. They were participants in her journey, each heart beating in rhythm with her own revelations. At that moment you must be your truest self, for therein lies the power of your voice, echoed louder than ever, and with each word, she felt a tether connecting her to her audience, a bridge she had not sensed before. However, in the midst of this liberating realization, shadows resurfaced, elements of her life still shrouded in uncertainty. Even as she spoke, the echoes of her past fears lingered, whispering doubts of whether this moment was authentic or merely a facade draped in courage. Was she brave enough to allow this vulnerability to root deeper than the surface? The very notion unsettled her, for exposing one's core felt like more than a risk. It was a reckoning. Determined not to retreat, Sarah began to outline her aspirations, not just for herself but for her connection to her readers. She detailed a vision where her words could foster not merely recognition, but nurturance, helping others unveil their own journeys of discovery. A different kind of success took shape in her mind, one not measured by accolades but by authenticity. As she closed her reflection, the applause washed over her like a warm embrace. It wasn't just applause for her words. It felt like an acknowledgement of their shared experience, a catharsis that transcended the room. Yet, as she stepped down, exhilaration mingled with a new layer of uncertainty. She realized that this was only the beginning, a catalyst for a deeper awakening. What lay ahead? Would this experience fortify her resolve, or send her spiraling back into familiar doubt? Outside the confines of the room, a world awaited her, one filled with both potential and peril, as well as the promise of self-discovery. Just as she contemplated her next steps, a figure approached her. It was Jessie Langford, eyes gleaming with interest. "We need to talk," she said, a knowing smile curling at the edges of her lips. What could this renowned writer possibly want from her? The anticipation churned within Sarah, coiling tightly around her gut. What revelation awaited in this imminent conversation? As Sarah stood before Jessie Langford, her heart raced, anticipation swirling with the remnants of exhilaration from her earlier performance. Jessie radiated warmth and grace, and in that moment, Sarah felt both small and empowered, as if the world had momentarily narrowed to only the two of them. "Your story resonates," Jessie announced, her voice laced with sincerity. "You articulate the journey of rediscovery beautifully. I sense the truth in your words, and I believe there's much more to be explored." The validation swelled within Sarah, illuminating the corners of her heart she had feared would remain shadowed. "Thank you," Sarah managed to reply, overwhelmed but determined. "I've been working hard to embrace my voice, but it's been a long road." As they conversed, Sarah felt a newfound strength flow through her. Each shared thought peeled back another layer of self-doubt, reaffirming her belief that she was indeed capable of thriving. Jessie leaned in slightly, a glimmer of resolution in her eyes. "I'm organizing a mentorship program for emerging writers. I'd like to offer you the opportunity to join us, to develop your skills further and refine your voice." And just like that, a seismic shift in Sarah's journey occurred. The weight of past doubts began to lift, replaced by an electrifying rush of possibility. Her heart surged with excitement, intertwined with the residual anxiety of facing another leap into the unknown. "This could be my chance to really take my writing to the next level," Sarah reflected, grappling with how profound the moment felt. "Do you believe you're ready for this?" Jessie's question struck a chord deep within her. Months of contemplation, of rediscovery, of transformation flashed before her mind's eye. I think I am," Sarah responded, mustering confidence. "It's time for me to fully invest in my passion, to be vulnerable enough to grow and evolve." The certainty in her voice marked a stark contrast to the timidity she had once known. "Excellent," Jessie applauded softly. "Commitment often ignites the path to greatness." As they exchanged contact information and set the foundation for their collaboration, Sarah felt the exhilarating tingle of embarking on a new chapter. Each moment felt like a step toward solidifying her identity, a statement that she was willing to embrace all aspects of her journey, the triumphs, the uncertainties, and the dreams yet to fulfill. Returning home that evening, a wave of realization washed over her. She was no longer merely Jake's mother. She was Sarah, a burgeoning writer pursuing her passions. A simple shift in perspective transformed her role. It granted her a profound sense of ambition not just for herself but as a model for her son. She envisioned how sharing her journey of courage could inspire Jake to recognize and strive for his own dreams. In the weeks following, Sarah committed wholeheartedly to her writing and mentorship program. Late nights filled with creativity replaced fleeting moments of self-doubt. She poured her heart into her work, crafting stories that illustrated growth, vulnerability, and triumph. Submitting her pieces into small publications gave her immense satisfaction, but the greatest fulfillment arose from the support she offered to others in the program, discovering the joy in uplifting fellow writers. Then came another breakthrough. One crisp afternoon, she received an email from a literary journal, inviting her to be featured for her courage in sharing her personal evolution. Her heart swelled with pride. This was validation not just for her writing, but for the woman she had become. Each small victory connected the threads she had begun to weave throughout her journey. As Sarah gathered her thoughts, preparing for the publication launch, she noticed a shift in her confidence, the kind that comes from truly knowing one's worth. She was no longer wrestling with identity but embracing it. When asked to speak at the launch event, she felt empowered to stand before the audience again, buoyed by the lessons learned and the connections forged through her writing. That night, holding the microphone, she looked out into the crowd and recognized familiar faces supporting friends, fellow writers, and notably Jake, beaming with pride from the front row. This journey has been about more than just writing. It's been about reclaiming who I really am, Sarah began, her voice steady and resonant. And it's never too late to pursue your dreams, no matter how far they may seem. As the applause echoed through the venue, Sarah felt an unshakable sense of achievement wash over her. In that moment, she knew she had stepped into her true self and paved a path that showcased resilience and authenticity. She emerged stronger, her heart full not just as a mother guiding her son, but as a woman unafraid to seize her worth and aspirations with conviction. Sarah had conquered her fears, embracing her writing and transforming her narrative into one of profound self-discovery. Now, as you ponder the emotions of Sarah's journey, you need to subscribe now and become part of our vibrant community. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others discover these inspiring stories. Comment below your reactions and theories about Sarah's transformative journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us spread the message of personal growth everywhere.